Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Myself Shivani Hararkar, and in today's video we are going to see state diagrams in DBMS. So let's see. State diagram is represent the flow of transaction through various phases. The transaction is a sequence of operations treated as a single unit to work, and it is important to manage the transaction life cycle carefully by ensuring the asset properties. And the state of transactions are active state, partially committed state, committed, aborted, failed, or terminated. Let's see what is state diagram actually. A state diagram is nothing but a graphical representation of a system that shows the various steps it can be and in how it transitions from one state to another state. The In this context, the state diagrams are used to model the various states of transaction and the conditions that causes transitions between two states. It is beneficial to simplify a complex transactional behavior. It also helps the visualize control flow of database operations, and it is also useful for system design, analysis, and debugging. Um, we can say a bank transfer is the best example for this transaction. That is, it might be activated or committed or aborted the transaction during the bank transfer. So here are the phases of transaction state diagram. First one is the active state, then partially committed state, failed state, aborted state, and terminated state. So we will see each and every state in detail. So first of all, active state. Active state is nothing but a transaction is currently executing the operations. In this, if a transaction is in execution, then it is said to be in an active state. During this state, read and write operations can be performed. State is useful for read and writes, and in this state, a transaction is live. Next is a partially committed state. Once the whole transaction is successfully executed, the transaction goes into partial committed state, where we all have the read and write operations performed on the main memory, that is our local memory, instead of the actual database. It may have risk like a fail due to crash or system error, maybe. But in this state, the transaction is if the transaction is successful, it goes to committed, and if it gives some errors, then the transaction must be failed. Next is committed state. If the transaction completes the execution successfully, then all the changes made in the local memory during partially committed state or permanently stored in the database is executed. These transaction changes are permanently saved in the database. Uh, it is it survives the power failure or crash. Next is failed state. If the transaction considers failed when one of the checks fails, or if the transaction is aborted while it is in active state. If a transaction is executing and a failure occurs, either it may be hardware failure or a software failure, then the transaction goes into the failed state from the active state, and the transaction cannot proceed due to an error or issue. After that, it leads to the aborted state, and if in aborted state, if the transaction fails during its execution, it goes from failed state to aborted state. And because in this previous states all the changes were only made in the main memory, these uncommitted changes are either deleted or rolled back. The transaction at this point can restart and start afresh from the active state. Transaction has been rolled back completely also, and in this state, the database is restored the original state, and transaction may restart again. And our last state is terminated state. The state of transaction reaches the terminated state when the certain transactions which are leaving the system cannot be restarted. It is a final state of transaction after either being committed or aborted. No further actions required for the transaction is concluded. After the transaction is concluded, it marks the completion of transaction life cycle by using the state diagram. So that's all for today's video. Thank you.